Welcome to this Tutor to You Sociology topic video on families and households, focusing on the personal life perspective. Some sociologists have suggested that the study of the family needs to be replaced with a study of personal lives in contemporary society. This is due to the greater diversity of life choices that people make in the 21st century, and how people often form relationships that have greater meaning with individuals who are not their blood relatives. This approach, often referred to as the personal life perspective, is an approach that looks at the interactions and the social construction of relationships between individuals and their support networks that they have. This is in contrast to more traditional forms of sociology that focus on marriage and blood relations and have a tendency to overestimate the influence of family life on an individual's experience. This approach utilises interpretivist methods to examine some of the interactions between people and those that they may form relationships and connections with. And in this video we're going to look at the work of May and Smart, and particularly Smart's Connectedness thesis. Vanessa May suggested that changes in society have led people to draw greater meaning from their relationships with people outside of the family unit. In contrast to functionalist ideas of a privatised nuclear family with functions that were performed by institutions or by family members, May suggests that often emotional support, practical support and other functions are provided by networks of friends rather than blood relations. This is in part due to the greater diversity of families and the decline of the nuclear family. For example, lone parent families will often look to friends for support with childcare or emotional support, rather than relying upon a partner. May suggested that in contemporary society, people often develop these networks of friends, colleagues and members of the local community, rather than relying upon family members. A second sociologist to examine the role of support networks was Carol Smart. She suggested that all too often research into family life was based upon the white middle-class family, and that therefore much research into the roles of the family is ethnocentric. Smart suggested that people can develop meaningful relationships with others outside of the family, and that these relationships are often stronger than the bonds that they have with family members. The benefit of having a support network of friends is that individuals can make choices about who they allow to support them and who they support in return. The old adage of you can choose your friends but not your family rings true in the research of Smart, and that often those bonds with friends are stronger, in part due to shared experiences. Smart's work forms what has become known as the Connectedness thesis. In her research, Smart examined aspects of personal lives that had previously been ignored by traditional sociologists who had researched the family. She focused on how people perceived their relationships with others, the strength of those relationships, and the individual's understanding of that relationship. Smart identified 5 key concepts. Memory, the extent to which relationships are built upon shared emotional memories. Biography, the life history of the relationships. Embeddedness, the extent to which people are connected to one another. Relationality, the health of that relationship. And imaginary, how the relationship is perceived by both parties. Let's take a closer look at those now. The first concept is that of memory, and this refers to the emotional memories that we share with others according to Smart. While some memories are shared with family, others such as comforting somebody at a time of sadness, or being able to celebrate a promotion, or just a fond memory that is shared with people that helps them to bond together. Whereas we often associate these events with family, many people will experience events of joy and trauma away from their own families. Instead, they will be surrounded by their friends, their colleagues, their neighbours and people in the local community, and that leads to the formation of bonds of friendship from these shared emotional memories. The second concept that influences relationships is an individual's biography. Now, this refers to their life history and the interactions they have with people throughout their lives. For example, people may form long-lasting and meaningful connections with friends from university, with colleagues they've worked with people they've shared accommodation with, or people they've met when they were travelling or living abroad, particularly in a global society. These relationships may continue into the present, and the shared history between these people may lead to them forming closer relationships with those people than with their biological family, who may have been absent at different periods of their lives. And this is most common in individuals' late teens and 20s, where they strive for independence from the family unit. third concept described by Smart is the level of embeddedness that individuals have with one another. This refers to the social networks that people find themselves in, the interconnected web of people that we interact with on a regular basis. Individuals may draw meaning from the connections they develop through others, and this influences the strength of our relationships to others and how we interact with them. We may have more commonalities with a former housemate than our siblings, and this will influence those relationships. Furthermore, our opinions may be swayed more by those within our network, as opposed to the family who we rarely interact with. Relationality refers to the nature of our relationship with others. In other words, how well we interact with those people. The family can be a source of conflict, and often we search for interactions with people that are similar to ourselves to reduce the conflict in our lives. Friends are more likely to offer support in these instances, and as such, individuals turn to friends for emotional support. For example, people who are victims of domestic violence may seek refuge or respite with friends, whilst people rejected by their family, for example members of the LGBTQ community rejected for their sexuality, may develop networks of similar friends to replace the family unit. As opposed to some other approaches that centre on the family as a harmonious unit, Smart suggests that some people actively look to escape the family unit as it is a source of oppression and seek out like-minded individuals who can empathise with their experiences. The final concept is imaginary, and this refers to the ways in which the relationships between people are perceived by the individuals within that relationship. This involves the thought processes associated with interaction with others. What will people think? How important is that relationship to an individual? What potential does the relationship have? How much support can people offer? How will people react to certain behaviours? This is the most subjective concept within Smart's ideas, based upon individual interpretations of a relationship and the thoughts and actions of others. What Smart's research does demonstrate is that the process of forming relationships in contemporary society is far more complex than other theories that suggest that a person's family will shape their behaviours. It examines a broader range of psychological and sociological processes, which reflects on the changing nature of personal relationships in contemporary society. The Connectedness thesis looks to be in contrast with the works of individualisation theorists such as Giddens, Beck and Bauman. The notion of free will and choice in relationships is something that is dismissed as being a middle-class idea, as often people are tied down by relationships that limit their choice. Smart's research was also relatively small scale, which has led to criticisms of looking at atypical people in society. However, the depth of the research identified key processes in the formation of relationships that had previously been neglected, providing sociology with a greater understanding of how people interact with one another. It can be further argued that there is a lack of focus on broader social trends. With the examination of individual interactions, some sociologists would suggest that family structures still have an influence over the behaviours that individuals display. That concludes this Tutor to You Sociology topic video looking at families and households, focusing on the personal life perspective. Thanks for watching.